listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have UFC Macau, Jan versus Figueiredo, preview, predictions, and breakdown. The UFC Fight Night takes place this upcoming Saturday at a 2 a.m. Central Standard Time start time for the prelims. So you better get your sleep in on Friday and be ready to rise and shine and cash these tickets on a very underrated fight card with a phenomenal main event in the bantamweight division between the former reigning, defending flyweight king in Davison, Deus de Guerra, Figueiredo, taking on the former interim and undisputed UFC bantamweight champion in Piotr No Mercy Jan. Jan versus Figueiredo in the main event, and in the co-main event, you have China's own Xiaonan, sorry, I almost messed that up, taking on Tabitha Baby Shark Ricci in a typical striker versus grappler matchup. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, real quick before we get into the card, obviously I hope you liked that intro. I hope it didn't break your eardrums or rupture your eardrums, but we'll talk about 309 real quick. It was a pretty good card. I felt like the main card was kind of lackluster. Co-main event, it went 5 rounds. The Bo Nickal fight went all 3 rounds, and what I thought was a pretty lackluster performance for Bo Nickal. You know, you should be able to beat a guy like Paul Craig, but Craig's a veteran. Craig has a good kicking game from the outside, but he was even landing some punches against Bo Nickal. And, you know, no shade on Nickal, but I think that should probably cool off the future champ moniker that people were giving him. Not to say he didn't perform well. He definitely won the fight. Like, I don't think there was a way you could have given that fight to Craig. You could have given him 1 round, I think. I think Craig could have got 1 round. But even that's kind of a stretch. Main event, John Jones. He got hit with a couple shots, but for the most part, dominated. Knee to the body, outside trip that was beautiful, and that vicious spinning back kick to the body that crumbled Stipe Miocic. Looks like he's going to be fighting either Pereira or Aspinall, or maybe we're going to get Aspinall versus Pereira, and then the winner will fight John Jones. Mauricio Hufi goes to decision with James Yantop, wins that fight via decision. Again, a lot of fights that were expected to not go the distance went the distance. Like if you had an Oliveira by decision, Bo Nickal by decision, Rufi by decision ticket, it paid a lot, okay? I think Nickal by decision was plus 700 on its own. So, you know, a lot of fights go in the distance that people did not expect to go the distance, and that, you know, that's how it goes sometimes. Sometimes even if you don't think it's going to happen, you just got to take a shot on it. I ended up winning on Oban Elliott round 3, plus 1,700. I only put $5 on it. Of course, you know, the crazy numbers we hit, I only put a little bit, but that pretty much broke me even for the night. I think I took a slight loss, maybe like minus $20, $25. So not a big deal going into this next week. But like I said, man, this card is pretty good. I'm not going to be covering the road to UFC finals. I'll be covering fights with guys who are on the road to UFC, but I don't pay enough attention to those, so I don't want to give you a breakdown when I'm kind of just coming in blind on most of those girls or guys. But yeah, I mean, we'll kick it off in the lightweight division with Maheshate, Jair Maheshate, taking on Nicholas Motta. 10-3 for Maheshate, 14-5 for Motta. This is a fight that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole if you're looking to bet. Breaking it down, I think the much more technical fighter is Maheshate. I think he uses his range better. He uses kicks better than Nicholas Motta. Motta is pretty much a boxer in MMA. He kind of reminds me of a boxer-wrestler, but he doesn't have any grappling. If anybody's going to push the wrestling and takedowns, I think it would be a guy like Maheshate. Maheshate knocked out Steve Garcia, nasty knockout. Goes to decision with Gabriel Benitez, where, you know, the fight was closer than some people would have expected, but Maheshate looked good, and I believe that was his first camp over at Fight Ready. So, new camp, new gym. I think he'll come into this fight and look better. We have seen Maheshate get knocked out. He got knocked out by Vyacheslav Borshev, and Borshchev does have knockout power. He's got very good kickboxing, but mainly is another boxer, and that did give Maheshate some trouble. I could easily see Motta closing the distance and landing a big bomb on the chin of Maheshate and putting him down. Because, like I said, we've seen Maheshate get knocked out before. But I do think that, Maheshate uses his reach, he uses his range, he uses his distance control a little bit better. But I do think he has issues with fighters who close the distance a little bit too fast and put him on the back foot and pressure, and that's exactly what Nicholas Motta is. Motta's a pressure fighter. Motta keeps that high guard. He moves in, big left hook, big right hand. And he's always looking to land those big hooks on your chin and put you out. He's looking to land those meat hooks right on your jaw and put you to sleep. He's not the most technical guy. He's not the most well-rounded guy. If you're very well-rounded, you can hurt him. You can knock him out as well. We saw him get knocked out with that vicious step-in elbow from Manuel Torres. And I think Maheshate has the clean enough technique to be able to hurt a guy like Nicholas Motta on the way in and to catch him with counters and keep him on the outside. The question is going to be the cardio of both men. Who's going to have the better cardio to push their game plan in the midpoint of the second round, into the third round? Because if Maheshate gets tired and Motta just keeps walking forward, I think there's a world where Maheshate probably wins the first round, round and a half, but gets tired, kind of slows down, and then off that back foot and getting pressured, he gets hit with a big bomb from Nicholas Motta and gets put down and knocked out. I do understand the people taking a shot on Nicholas Motta as the underdog. He has beaten guys like Cameron Van Camp. He's knocked out some decent competition. Maheshate hasn't beat the best competition, but he does have that knockout victory over Steve Garcia, and look how good Steve Garcia has been doing in the UFC. I'm going to take Maheshate here. I think that he has good enough technique and good enough understanding of the distance and range to be able to kind of pick apart Motta as he walks into the distance. And I don't think Motta is that good. I'm not crapping on him. I like watching him fight. He's a dog. He comes in, he throws big bombs. But when it comes to having a game plan, when it comes to being technically good, I don't really see that from Nicholas Motta. I think he just kind of walks into range and finds that power, moves his head, walks in, and eventually walks you into a shot. That is a way that I think he can beat a guy like Maheshate, but I think Maheshate is crisper, uses his range better, even though the reach is pretty similar, and can kind of just pick apart Motta as he walks in, hit him with counters, and potentially hurt him. I'm going to go Maheshate by decision. I have a feeling this fight might go the distance. I could also see Maheshate just kind of peppering Motta, ripping to the body, coming back up top and hurting him late. If you want to play the KO on Maheshate, I think it would probably be KO 2-3. If you're on Motta, probably KO 1-2. Fight ends by KO is probably a good idea. I think it could end, or not a good idea, but I think it's worth a shot if you're looking to play that, just so you can cover yourself on both sides. But I have a feeling this fight might go to decision. If Maheshate wins by knockout, it's probably round 2, round 3. But give me Maheshate via 29-28 unanimous decision. I think he wins, probably slows down in the third, but Motta doesn't have the gas to push the pace. But yeah, give me Maheshate by decision, 29-28. All right, next fight up is in the bantamweight division. You have a battle between a road to UFC fighter and Xiaonan taking on a former LFA fighter who made his UFC debut on short notice against Chris Gutierrez in Quang Lee. Listen, man, Xiaonan, 26-8. And, he doesn't have the best striking, but he can put his shots together. He kind of reminds me of, I think he tries to go after this fighter anyway, like in terms of a style, is Merab Dvalishvili. He's not at that level, but he just kind of walks forward, gets into the clinch, tries to land knees to the body, elbows over the top, goes for takedowns, chain wrestles, gets you down, gets you tired, and just wants to have you on the back foot the entire time. I do think Xiaonan can push a pretty high level of cardio, and that'll slow down a lot of guys. If there's one guy I don't think it's going to slow down, however, at least to the point where it supremely affects his overall performance in the fight, I think it's Quang Lee. I think Quang Lee has good enough management of distance. He moves pretty well. He looks pretty smooth and fleet-footed on the feet. He puts his combinations together. He has good boxing combinations. He punctuates his combinations with kicks, and he can also grapple himself. He can go for takedowns. He can reverse positions and take your back. He can put in a body triangle and hold you in positions and, win minutes on the clock. I don't necessarily think getting into those grappling exchanges with Xiaolong from an offensive perspective are the greatest idea, because you're giving Xiaolong a chance to scramble, you're giving him a chance to reverse, you're giving him a chance to get into the top position and start landing shots, and that's not where Quang Le wants to be, because on the bottom, I do believe Xiaolong is going to be winning at a much higher clip if he's on the top versus if Quang Le's on the top and Xiaolong is fighting off of his back. If Xiaolong's on top, that round or those moments are going to go to a guy like Xiaolong. But I do believe Quang Le to be the much more powerful striker in terms of having knockout ability, finishing upside. I think on the feet, Quang Le is the much more dangerous guy. I think he does have grappling to be able to defend some of the positions, defend some of the takedowns from Xiaolong. And if you watch the fight with Xiaolong and Cheng Ho Lee, the knees up the middle and knees to the body in the clinch were kind of breaking down Xiaolong throughout the fight. And I think that's something that Lee's going to take notice of is, when he gets into the distance, when he gets into the range, or when they get into close range, I guess, he's going to be looking to land those knees, land those uppercuts, knee to the body, knee to the head, single collar tie, uppercut up the middle, hook around the side. I just kind of feel like if Quang Le's cardio's on point, he should win this fight. I think he can get a knockout. I think he can hurt Xiaolong to the body. I think he can hurt him up top to the head. But again, it's going to be, he's fighting on the back foot, and fighting on the back foot for a 15-minute fight, that gets extremely tiring. Especially against a guy who throws a couple shots, goes for takedowns, goes back to the body lock, lands knees, lands uppercuts, transitions back down to a takedown. Like, those guys are always difficult to fight. And if your cardio's not on point, you might win the first round, but you're going to slow down, and then that's where the grappler and the pressure fighter can take over. And I could easily see that being the case here in this fight. I think this is a very competitive fight. I think it's very high level. I think the fighter who looks technically better in terms of their more well-rounded game is Quang Le, but I do think Xiaolong has a style that could give Quang Le some issues in terms of if his cardio is not up to par, he probably will slow down in the second and third, probably will allow Xiaolong to win more of those scrambles, get to his back, land ground and pound, potentially lock up a submission, get to the mount and just win minutes on top. But I'm going to go Quang Le here. I think he's sharp enough on the feet to damage Xiaolong enough to tire him out. I think he has good enough grappling to be able to compete in the scrambles with Xiaolong, and I think he knows what range and distance he needs to be at in order to execute his game plan. I think he throws pretty good boxing combinations. His kicks are pretty good as well, and I think he has the higher finishing upside on the feet, while I believe Xiaolong has the finishing upside on the ground, but I do think Quang Le will have the cardio to kind of push a pace later in the fight than Xiaolong will. I'm going to go Quang Le. I don't know if I want to take a finish or a decision. Let me think about this. I'm going to go Quang Le by a second round knockout. I think he's going to hurt Xiaolong and put him out. I think he's going to rock him, hurt him, cause him to panic shoot, stuff the takedown, get back to his feet, and start putting his combos on him, throwing his hands, really crisp, tight boxing combinations, ripping shots to the body, and I think he puts down Xiaolong. I could see a decision. I think this is a fight that could go the distance more often than not. But yeah, give me Quang Le via second round TKO over Xiaolong. I think he hurts him, puts some combinations on him, stops the wrestling for the first round and a half, and then really starts to pick it up. So give me Quang Le. I'll go third round. You know what? Give me third round. I'm going to go third round TKO for Quang Le. All right, the next fight up is going to be in the flyweight division. You have a Contender Series alum in the UFC debut for Lonair Kavanagh taking on Jose Ochoa. This is going to be a good fight, guys. Very, very good fight. I believe Jose Ochoa to be more than capable of winning this fight against Lonair Kavanagh. He is a pressure fighter. He pushes back his opponents. He gets in their face. He rips big hooks, big uppercuts, and he has vicious work from inside the clinch. Vicious knees to the body, vicious knees to the head, can land elbows, can land uppercuts, and he wants to be pushing you back and making you very uncomfortable. That is what Jose Ochoa does. He's a well-rounded fighter, but he more reminds me of just pushing you back, making you uncomfortable, and trying to break you mentally while also trying to take your head off at the same time. Loner Kavanagh, coming off that knockout in the first round against Antoine Ho on the Contender Series. Beautiful front snap kick or teep kick to the body, and then using that into a little gazelle left hook as he used it to cut the angle and catch Antoine Ho right on the chin. Caught him, knocked him out. A lot of people expected that to go to a decision. A lot of people were not expecting a finish from either guy. Loner Kavanagh came in, made a statement, and put him down in round 1. Now, if you look at Loner Kavanagh's record, undefeated as a pro mixed martial artist. Same thing goes for his opponent in Jose Ochoa. Ochoa also 7-0. So, combined record of 14-0. And if you look at the rest of Kavanagh's wins, you know, he's got 5 KOs, 0 submissions, and 2 decisions. So he is a knockout artist. People are expecting him to point fight, stay on the outside, use that karate style to kind of pick you apart and win a decision. But I do think that he's more than capable of winning this fight by knockout. But you have to stay on the outside, you have to play the counter game, and you have to switch your stances, cut angles, throw those big hooks, 1-2 down the middle, step out, front snap kick to the body, catch him 2-3, pivot out, and just be kind of fighting on a cloud for the majority of this fight, because the one thing you don't want is you don't want Ochoa to push you back. You don't want Ochoa to get you up against the cage. You don't want Ochoa to get into the boxing or clinch range and be able to walk you down, be able to land a big left hook, be able to land a big right hook, be able to land a big uppercut, push you against the fence, get you in the over-unders, land knees, land elbows, get you in the tie plum, land knees to the body, land knees to the head. That's not something that you want from a guy like Ochoa. If Ochoa has you on the back foot, he's the type of fighter that will continue to build and build and build. I feel like when he starts to see you break, the confidence in Ochoa starts to get higher, and he will push forward. He will be a mean, nasty fighter and just try to put you on that back foot. He got an anaconda choke submission in his last fight in the first round, a first-round knockout before that, second round liver shot, second round head kick, first round punches. This guy is mean and nasty. He has a kicking game. He's got boxing, kickboxing, forward pressure, and he has grappling to go with it. I think I'm talking too fast for this one. But when I really see this fight, I don't see this fight as a fight that Loner Kavanagh loses. I think Kavanagh does have the possibility or the potential of getting clipped. And if you think that Kavanagh's going to get clipped in this fight, then you probably want to take the underdog in Ochoa because he's over a 2-1 underdog. I think probably plus 325, plus 300, something like that. I could see Ochoa clipping Kavanagh as he moves forward and putting him down and potentially finishing him. But I also think that in terms of more well-rounded, I think Kavanagh is more well-rounded. And I think the footwork and range management is what's really going to give a guy like Ochoa some trouble, because he's not going to be able to track the movement of Kavanagh that easy. He's not going to be able to track the movement, cut those angles, cut him off, and push him back to the cage where he's going to want to, execute his game plan, which is big, heavy punches, straight down the middle, cut them as they're circling off with kicks, knees to the body in the clinch, elbows, potentially going for takedowns. I just see Loner Kavanagh as the sharper fighter in this matchup, and that's really what it comes down to. I think he has the sharper striking. I think he has the sharper counters. I think he has the better footwork, and I think he has the jiu-jitsu to go along with it, even though Ochoa can also get submissions. I think this could be your fight of the night. I think both guys can get hurt. I think both guys can get cracked at a certain point. But I do think Loner Kavanagh is going to win, and I think he's going to win by submission. I could see this going decision, but I kind of feel like at a certain point, Ochoa is going to walk into a big shot. He's going to get clipped. He's going to shoot a bad takedown. I think Kavanagh is going to spin, take his back, put the hooks in, and lock up a rear naked choke submission. I could see a KO on the feet from either guy. Ochoa's live for a knockout because we've seen Kavanagh get clipped. Kavanagh's live for a knockout for the other reasons that we explained. But I think he's going to rock Ochoa coming in, sprawl, spin, take his back, put the hooks in, grab the neck, and get a rear naked choke. I'm going to take Loner Kavanagh, or Loner, however you want to say his name. Give me Loner Kavanagh. Second round rear naked choke submission against Jose Ochoa. All right, the next fight up is in the flyweight division. You have another fighter from the road to UFC, and Niam Jargal Tumendemberel, the art of knockout, taking on Carlos Hernandez. This is a great fight again, dude. You gotta find a way to watch these early prelims. Either watch them after the fact and don't look at the results, but man, Tumendemberel versus Hernandez is going to be a war, because let me tell you something about art of knockout. This guy comes forward and doesn't give a shit what you put in his face. He doesn't care. You throw big shots, he's coming forward. Big left hook, big overhand right, big uppercuts, big shots in the clinch. Everything this guy throws on the feet is to, number one, close the distance, and number two, to hurt you and put you out. He has so many first-round knockouts, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's entertaining. It shows you have dominance. But what happens when you don't get those first-round KOs? Can you come back? Can you keep pushing forward? Can you find a way to win? Because on the Contender Series, or not Contender Series, on the road to UFC, we saw him win a split decision in a fight that, realistically, he probably should have lost. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Let me find him real quick, who that fighter was that he won, or who he beat via split decision on the road to UFC. I want to keep saying Contender Series. He's 8-0, coming off of it was the second to last fight he had. He fought Topnoi Kiram. He won that fight via split decision, but that guy was a kickboxer. He was a Muay Thai fighter. And I feel like Niam Jargal was outstriking him, but at a certain point, he got out-controlled. He got out-positioned. He got controlled from the top, and that was against a kickboxer. Carlos Hernandez is a guy who isn't a kickboxer, but he has a very high-level wrestling and very good boxing. He is one of the best scramblers in this division. Just go back and watch his last fight against Ray Saruya. Saruya is known as a high-level grappler, a high-level submission artist, and these guys went back and forth. Now, Saruya clearly won the fight. He clearly, won more scrambles, outpowered him, out-techniqued him, almost got Hernandez in a twister, ended up in the top position more than he ended up in the bottom position, but Hernandez never stopped fighting. He never stopped moving forward, and he was able to come back and win that third round just based off of forward pressure, tenacity, and cardio, pushing the pace, winning the scrambles, and never giving up on himself. I do believe that the wrestling in this fight is on the side of Carlos Hernandez big time, and if you're getting out-wrestled and outworked by a guy who, is technically known as a kickboxer or a striker, and he's out wrestling you and out scrambling you and winning the top positions more than you are, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. But I do worry about the durability of a guy like Carlos Hernandez. He had a beautiful win over Dennis Bondar, won that fight via TKO, but it was, headbutt, whatever. He clearly won by knockout. It was off of a slam. I don't think that should have been a DQ or gone to a decision and didn't count as a finish. Niam Jargal Tumendemberel, like I said, the guy's mean, the guy's nasty. He comes forward, pushes the pace, big overhands, big uppercuts, big shots down the middle, big head kicks, and he can hurt you. And we've seen Carlos Hernandez get rocked. We've seen him get wobbled. Saw him get knocked out by Tatsuro Taira. In a guy in Taira who's not necessarily known as a striker, but he has good striking. He showed decent striking against Brandon Royval, but then kind of got pieced up, almost got finished, came back, etc., etc. Carlos Hernandez can win this fight. I believe him to be the better grappler. I believe him to be the better scrambler, but I do worry about his durability, and I think that Niam Jargal does have decent enough grappling to at least be competitive in the wrestling exchanges. And I do think that Tumendemberel might just have a little bit too much variety on the feet for a guy like Carlos Hernandez. I think Hernandez probably pushes a higher pace. I think Hernandez is the better scrambler, which isn't, rocket science if you really think about it. But I just see the forward pressure, the meanness, and the willingness to get into firefights for Niam Jargal. I think that's what's going to win him this fight. I think he will hurt Carlos Hernandez at a certain point. I think he will rock him, and I think he will put him away. And even if he doesn't put him away, I think the damage and the overall variety on the feet is going to outweigh the grappling success and the wrestling success for Carlos Hernandez if we do go to a decision. This is also in Macau, China. With Niam Jargal coming off of the road to UFC, you have to put that into consideration and think that if it's a close fight, they might lean towards Tumendemberel. Even though he's not from, where they're competing at, you do have to take that into consideration where they might lean towards him in, the winner of this fight. Yes, he's from Mongolia, and it's not the exact place that they're going to be in, but it could play into the judging if it is a close fight. So I like the underdog. I'm going to take Niam Jargel, Tumendemberel. I think he beats Carlos Hernandez. I think he wins by knockout. His nickname is the Art of Knockout. I think he finds a way to get into a crazy exchange, hurts Hernandez, and doesn't allow him to recover. So give me Niam Jargel, Tumendemberel to win via second round knockout in this fight. I think he will hurt Hernandez and not allow him to recover. If Hernandez is consistently able to get the wrestling off, I think he will have success in taking down Niam Jargel, but the striking on the feet may outweigh him, or may outweigh his success in the grappling. So give me the underdog. Give me Tumendemberel, second round knockout over Carlos Hernandez. Again, close fight, but I like the underdog here. Next up, you got a battle in the light heavyweight division between Zhang Mingyang, the Mountain Tiger, taking on Ozzy Diaz, who in his picture on the UFC website looks like he's in pretty decent shape. But when you go back and watch his recent fights, I mean, this guy is a big light heavyweight, potentially could be a heavyweight. I mean, big dude, gained a lot of weight, and I'm not throwing shade at him at all. But, yeah, I just think he's outmatched with Zhang Mingyang. I picked Brenderson Ribeiro over Zhang Mingyang, but I did bet the fight to end by knockout, and that's exactly what happened. But when I really looked into Zhang Mingyang, yeah, he beat Tuco Tokos on the road to UFC, caught him with a shot, wobbled him, and then just cracked him with a big right hand, I believe, and put him down. Had him bending at the knee backwards, just a nasty knockout against the cage. Then against Ribeiro, he gets hurt with a big shot early, but they continue to get into exchanges. And the one thing I notice about a guy like Mingyang is the fact that this guy doesn't mind getting into exchanges in the pocket. He will stay within 1 to 2 inches of you and just be comfortable sitting there picking your shots off and banging you right hand, left hook, right hand, slip, left hook, right hand, left hook. Very crisp and clean boxing. This guy has very, very clean and technical boxing, and it's going to be a big problem for Ozzy Diaz. Ozzy Diaz is a guy who never looks good early, can get taken down, can get controlled, can get flattened out, can get outstruck on the feet, but he wins fights based off his tenacity and the fact that he can walk through fire in order to tire you out and then come on strong later in the fight. In the second and in the third round, he comes on strong. After taking your biggest shots, after taking your best shots, he'll walk forward and, start to rough you up. I don't think that's going to work here against the Mountain Tiger in Zhang Mingyang. I think Mingyang will hurt Ozzy Diaz. I think he will rock him, and I think he will put him away. I think this is a showcase for a guy who I think they were expecting Brenderson Ribeiro to beat. And you go back and you look at Caio Machado versus Brenderson Ribeiro. Ribeiro wins that fight. Should have won by knockout. It didn't happen. I don't know how. But everybody crapping all over Ribeiro after that performance. He comes in against Machado, who was, nobody really liked him. Nobody was a huge fan of him. But, I think people thought he had some upside depending on who you were. I think people thought that he could achieve something in the UFC. Zhang Mingyang, I think, is too crisp, too clean, too technical, and too powerful, and also too fast for a guy like Ozzy Diaz. I think if Diaz can use his weight, use his pressure, slow down Mingyang in the second and third round, then maybe he takes him down, maybe he ground and pounds him, maybe he gets a sub. I do think that is something that could happen in this fight. But everybody's going to sit there and they're going to look at Zhang Mingyang's record, and they're going to say, oh, well, he doesn't have the greatest record. He's only 17-6. And that's true, but look at his last few fights. He started off on a win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win two, lose two, win one, lose two, and then he rattled off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wins in a row. 10 wins in a row, all by finish. Most of them coming in round 1, I believe. Did all of them come in round 1? Every single one of his finishes coming in round 1, even having some submissions along the way. So I think this guy has found his stride. I think he has found his Mingyang, his Zhang, so to speak. I think he knows what he needs to do. He's very comfortable in the pocket, and I think that's the biggest thing that's leaning me towards picking him to win this fight by knockout. He doesn't mind getting into exchanges. He doesn't mind getting in close. And I think Ozzy Diaz likes to win fights off of forward pressure, off of pace. And I think that forward pressure and pace is going to put him right in the spot where Zhang Mingyang needs him to be. And he's going to crack him with a big left hook, drop him, and knock him out. Give me Zhang Mingyang, the Mountain Tiger, to defeat Ozzy Diaz via a first-round knockout in this fight. All right, up next is a battle in the light heavyweight division between Volkan No Time Oezdemir and City Kickboxing's new hope for a world champion in the Black Jag, Carlos Ulberg. 20-7 for Volkan Oezdemir, 11-1 for Carlos Ulberg. Let me keep this short and sweet. This fight's going to end by knockout. Could be in the first round, could be in the second round. I don't think we make it to round 3. Oezdemir's a guy who started the UFC career off hot. About 10-second KOs, 15-second KOs over Jimmy Manua. Knocks out Johnny Walker in his last fight. And then prior to that, gets a submission win over Bogdan Guskov. And people thought Guskov was a fraud. People thought he didn't have anything to offer in the UFC. Comes in, knocks out Ryan Spann. Before that, knocks out Zach Pauga. And now people are starting to take Guskov more serious. And, excuse me, in this fight, I think it's going to be close because I think Ulberg does have some durability issues. We don't really ever see his chin get tested and cracked multiple times. The one time we did see him get tested, pushed back, and cracked was against Kennedy and Chukwu, and he wasn't able to put him out after putting a beating on him for about 2 rounds, and then he got knocked out up against the cage. I think Oezdemir has more than enough power to knock out Carlos Ulberg. He can push him back, catch him on the chin, and put him down. 100%. Oezdemir can win this fight. That's why I think this fight ends by KO, because both of these guys' win conditions are pretty much knockout or bust. Now, Ulberg was about 4 seconds away from getting a decision win against Dawoon Jung, and then he locks up a rear naked choke. They don't see the tap. He passes out. We think we're going to decision, and it ends Carlos Ulberg via submission. And that was a fight that cost me a parlay, and I was really upset because I had KO decision. But besides the point, we can't let that affect the breakdown of this fight. We know that Ulberg has grappling. We know that he has takedowns. I do not think he has better takedowns or grappling than Volkan Oezdemir. I know we don't see Oezdemir use his wrestling. We don't see him use his takedowns. I think if there is a fight where he's going to use his wrestling, use his cage pushing, use his takedowns, and look to get control on the top, I think it is in a fight against Carlos Ulberg, who's very good off the back foot with counters, who's very good moving forward, but will have you walking into shots and getting hurt and getting knocked out. Oezdemir knocked out Johnny Walker. Really solid win there, but again, the ghost of Johnny Walker. Walker doesn't have a chin. He clips him, knocks him out, bada boom. Realest dudes in the room, how you doing? The boom for no time, and it comes off as a knockout win. I do think Oezdemir is more towards the end of his career than he is in the beginning of his career, but looking at this fight, man, I gotta lean Carlos Ulberg. I think Ulberg wins. I think Ulberg wins by KO. Again, it's not a fight that I want to bet a 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1 favorite against a guy who can also catch Ulberg on the chin and knock him out. But I think the counter striking, the speed, and the technique of Carlos Ulberg is what's going to give Volkan Oezdemir some trouble. I think he will get caught on the way in. I think he will get put down, and I think he will get knocked out. I could easily see Volkan pushing back Ulberg, walking through the fire and then putting one on his chin against the cage, just like Kennedy and Chukwu, and knocking him out. Like I said, I think Ulberg can be taken down. I think Oezdemir can use his wrestling, but I do think that the defensive wrestling and the distance management of Ulberg is going to be too much for Volkan to be able to execute that game plan. I like Ulberg here. I'm going to take Carlos Ulberg via a second-round knockout. I know he came in, knocked out Alonzo Menefield in the first round. I think he's going to pay a little bit more respect to Volkan Oezdemir, but I do think he's too fast, too clean, and too powerful for a guy like Oezdemir at this point in his career. So I'm going to take Ulberg by second-round knockout. I think he will catch Oezdemir coming in, wobble him, land another shot, and put him down. I like the blackjack, so give me Carlos Ulberg, second-round KO. But again, not a fight I would be looking to bet on because Oezdemir can definitely win by knockout. And I think your best bet would be the fight to end by knockout, but that's probably going to be minus 200 or higher. But as an overall pick, I got to go with the guy who I believe to be faster, cleaner, more technical, and better on the back foot, which is Carlos Ulberg. So give me Carlos, the Black Jag Ulberg, via second-round knockout over Volkan Oezdemir. All right, and now we're at the co-main event of the evening in the women's strawweight division. between Yan Xiaonan, who's 18-4, taking on Tabitha Baby Shark Ricci, who comes back with a record of 11 wins and only 2 defeats. Let me be honest with you guys here. I definitely think Tabitha Ricci is the better grappler, and you don't have to sit there and make a bunch of assumptions with that. I think we all know that. But I do believe that Yan Xiaonan's grappling has gotten much, much better. And people are going to look at the Carla Esparza fight. It makes sense. You're going to look at the Carla Esparza fight and see that she got taken down. She got put in the crucifix and she got beat up. And do I think Tabitha Ricci has the chance to do that? Yeah. I think she can get takedowns. I think she can sweep from her back. I think she can get to the top position. I think Ricci can land big ground and pound. Not necessarily powerful ground and pound, but enough ground and pound to keep Xiaonan on her back. And I think she can go for a lot of submissions. I think the armbar is going to be there. But I also think that fighting Mackenzie Dern for Yan Xiaonan is a good setup for a stylistic fight like a Tabitha Ricci. Because Ricci doesn't have any striking on the feet. She does not know how to strike. That's just not how she is. That's not the type of fighter that she is. And she can get hurt. She can get dropped. She can get put away. And against a girl who's as fast, as crisp, as clean, as technical as a Yan Xiaonan, I think I got to side with the striker over the grappler here. She came in, knocked out Jessica Andrade in the first round. That was a fight I picked Yan Xiaonan to win by knockout. She wins by KO in round 1. I think Xiaonan by KO, just regular for a prop, was 10-1, plus 1,000. She comes in there, makes it look easy, catches Andrade stepping in, puts her down. If you can put down a girl like Andrade, I think you can knock out a girl like Tabitha Ricci. Now, do I necessarily think that it's going to be a KO? I think it's more than live. More than live for Ricci to get knocked out by Xiaonan. Xiaonan's defensive grappling has gotten much better. She's gotten much better at defending submissions. She's gotten much better at staying calm in bad positions. Now, I do think Tabitha Ricci might be better with the chokes, which could get Xiaonan caught. We saw her get caught in that rear naked choke and basically put unconscious by Zhang Weili, then come back and continue to fight after waking up, basically after getting choked out, waking up and going into the next round in a title fight where Xiaonan was competitive. She was competitive with Zhang Weili on the feet. She was competitive, throwing big shots, and it was the grappling that really took her out. But I don't think Tabitha Ricci is nearly as good in the grappling realm as in terms of the wrestling and control as a girl like Zhang Weili. And I just don't see it. And I think for the most part, if Tabitha Ricci gets takedowns, I think Yan Xiaonan can work her way back up to the feet. I think when the fight is on the feet, it's like 90% Xiaonan, 10% Tabitha Ricci. And I think the distance control, the 1-2, the leg kicks, those are all going to be big weapons. She got way better at managing her distance and range, especially with that Mackenzie Dern fight. We saw a lot of that. And I do think that she's going to be able to control the distance and keep Ricci off of her more than Ricci's going to be able to close the distance and have success in the clinch, getting takedowns, getting to the top, looking to set up submissions, and looking to land big ground and pound. I think Xiaonan wins this. I think the KO is more than live. We have seen Tabitha Ricci get knocked out before. I believe that was also inside the UFC. If my memory serves me correctly, 11-2. She does have, a knockout loss to Manon Fiorot. She got knocked out in the second round. Now, I wouldn't say that Xiaonan is a better striker overall than Manon Fiorot, but I think she's at a similar level. She's got very good management of range, a very good 1-2, good kicks, good footwork and movement, good counter striking, and it is just going to be a nightmare for Tabitha Ricci on the feet. I think she's going to walk in, get lit up, get cracked, and I could see a late TKO for Yan Xiaonan. I'm going to go with a third round TKO for Yan Xiaonan over Tabitha Ricci. I could see Ricci getting takedowns. I could see Ricci controlling Xiaonan on the ground, but she's fought so many wrestlers and grapplers at this point. I think she's more than prepared for a style like Ricci, and we all know that Ricci isn't going to have much of anything for Xiaonan on the feet unless she lands a big looping haymaker, but she hasn't really been shown to have a bunch of knockout power. So I like Yan Xiaonan. Give me Yan Xiaonan via decision. I'm going to play it safe. Say she wins 29-28 decision, maybe 30-27, but I could see a late KO, a second or third round TKO for Xiaonan as well. So I like Yan Xiaonan here. I think she gets it done via 30. I'll go 30-27. 30-27 unanimous decision for Yan Xiaonan. I think this is a good fight for her, and I think she's going to look pretty dominant in this performance, if I'm being honest with you. I think she's going to tee off on Baby Shark on the feet. Now we're at the main event. My favorite fight on the card in the bantamweight division, a fight that is worthy of a main event spot between the former interim and undisputed bantamweight champion, the number 3 ranked Pelter No Mercy Yan, taking on the former flyweight champion and the man who has rattled off win after win after win over the likes of Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt, and Marlon Chito Vera in the bantamweight division in Davison Deus de Guerra Figueiredo. 24-3-1 for Davison Figueiredo, 17-5 for Piotr Yan. Now, let's look at the stats for this fight. I think this is a fight that the stats are kind of important. 2-inch height advantage for Piotr Yan, which is kind of weird because he's not normally known as like a taller fighter. 5'7" to 5'5" for Figueiredo. A 1-inch reach advantage for Figueiredo. He uses his reach and range well by using that lead hand and kind of leaning on the back foot to control the range and trying to snipe you with that right hand. Trying to snipe you with a check left hook. Trying to snipe you with his jab, stepping in, boom, control, bang. He uses that lead hand as a measure, tries to control your head and your movement, and then bang you with the right hand. We've seen that Figueiredo's power does translate to 135 as well. He dropped Rob Font multiple times, but Font was able to make it to a decision. He even dropped Marlon Chito Vera, which is a big deal because Marlon Chito Vera had never been dropped or rocked in his career in the UFC up until that point. He got rocked against Sean O'Malley in the title fight with that vicious and beautiful knee up the middle that cracked Marlon Vera on the chin. And, you know, he didn't go down, but he was definitely rocked. That may have played a part in Figueiredo knocking him down. If you look at the significant strikes, Yan is more active. 5.14 landed per minute to 3.01 for Figueiredo. 53% significant strike accuracy rate. He does take more strikes than Figueiredo, though. And I know on the stats, Yan is defensively better than Figueiredo, but I don't actually believe that to be true in terms of how this fight's going to play out. I think the fighter with the better defense in this matchup is probably going to be Piotr Yan. He absorbs 4.36 per minute to 3.39 for Figueiredo. So Figueiredo takes more than he lands. Yan lands more than he takes, but he gets hit a little bit more in terms of like numerical value. When it comes to the defense, 58% for Piotr Yan, 51% for Figueiredo. That's kind of what I just said. I think that translates pretty well. Now in the grappling, it's pretty equal. 1.73 takedowns per 15 minute for Yan to 1.68 for Figueiredo. Yan actually has more accurate takedowns at a 51% to a 35% for Figueiredo. Takedown defense, 85% for Piotr Yan to 58% for Figueiredo. And most of those takedowns came in the fight against Merab Dvalishvili, or at least the takedown attempts. I believe Merab got at least 2 or 3 takedowns, maybe more than that, maybe 5, 6 takedowns against Yan. And, you know, that fight obviously didn't go the way of Piotr Yan like we needed it to. Submission average 1.6 for Figueiredo, 2.14 for Piotr Yan. But we know that Yan does have submissions in his back pocket because we saw against, in his last fight against Song Yadong, where he was really picking it up in the second and third round after kind of dropping the first, that he did go for a Darce choke at the end of the third round and look to get a sub there. It was just kind of a statement more than him actually going for the submission, but he was able to get it done via decision there. I think that the 3 rounds versus 5 rounds plays a big difference in how this fight plays out because I do think Yan's going to be the sharper, more technical striker. I think he's going to be the much better boxer. I think he's going to be better defensively. I think Figueiredo's going to have success or try to have success with some takedowns. He might get maybe 1 or 2 early, but I think that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, that's what's going to favor Piotr Yan. That's why you see him in these 3-round fights and they're somewhat competitive. You know, he's losing a 5-rounder to Merab Dvalishvili, but Figueiredo doesn't have the same skill set of a Merab Dvalishvili. I hate Merab. I think he's one of the most boring fucking fighters on the entire roster, and I can't wait to see that goblin get sparked the fuck out. I'm just being honest. I cannot wait to see him get put down. I'm done with Merab. Great game plan, great ability, great cardio, but I'm just over it. Piotr Yan, I think, is going to butcher Deiveson Figueiredo in the late rounds, in the championship rounds, in the third, fourth, and fifth. I think this is the style of fight where we see Jan do his best work, where he, maybe loses the first round and a half, but then he starts to pick up the timing. He starts to find the counters, the cover counter left hook, the cover counter overhand left, inside and outside low kicks. He does have really solid takedown defense. It's just the number got skewed from the Merab Dvalishvili fight. I think that Figueiredo has the advantage on the ground. I think he has much better jiu-jitsu. We saw Aljamain Sterling get to Petr Yan's back, put the body triangle in, flatten him out, and beat him up. And that is another situation where I could see Figueiredo doing a similar thing, finding a way to take his back, finding a way to put in that body triangle, flattening him out, and landing big shots, looking for submissions. I don't think Figueiredo submits Petr Yan, but I do think he has an advantage on the ground and in the jiu-jitsu. And that's probably going to be his best opportunity to win this fight. But I do believe Petr Yan's, downloading the data style that we've talked about before, I think that is going to play into his hand here against Deiveson Figueiredo. And I think he will really start to pick it up towards the end of the second round. I think the third, fourth, and fifth, that's where Jan's going to find his counters. It's going to be easier for him to stuff the takedowns. I think Figueiredo's going to slow down like we've seen him slow down in so many other fights. And I think Jan's just going to start picking him apart, start landing counter hooks, start landing uppercuts in the clinch, start landing those kicks to the body, start putting those uppercuts up the middle, stuffing the takedown, controlling the head, throwing an uppercut, throwing a hook, 1-2 down the middle. And I think Petr Yan's just going to beat up Deiveson in the third, fourth, and fifth. I think it's going to be a case of Figueiredo does well early. Maybe he puts Jan in some danger but can't get a finish. Jan starts to pick it up in the third. He starts to slow down Figueiredo. The takedowns become more telegraphed. He's stuffing the takedowns, breaking off with strikes. Jan's also a very good striker off the break in the clinch and off the break in takedown attempts. He's got good trips of his own. I think he will slow down Figueiredo. He'll start to work the body, start to work up top. I see it being very similar to the Jose Aldo finish, where he just starts to put it on him, starts to break down Figueiredo, and I think Jan will finish Deiveson Figueiredo in the fourth round. I'm going to go Piotr No Mercy Jan via a fourth round TKO. I think he's going to hurt Figueiredo with a shot, rock him, start to put it on him, rip to the body, rip back up top. He's going to drop, and Jan is going to jump on him to get the finish. I like Piotr No Mercy Jan to get back on track here. Even though he won his last fight, I want him to start going on a roll, start getting into, building that momentum. I like Petr Yan, fourth round TKO win over Deiveson Figueiredo. I think Jan is better. I think Jan's defense will pay dividends in this fight. I think it will be easier for him to stuff the takedowns in the later rounds. I think Figueiredo probably wins the first round, maybe wins round 2 as well. And then that's where Jan starts to pick it up, starts to put the pace, the volume, the pressure, the counters, and they all start to come out. And I think Jan butchers Figueiredo in those championship rounds. So give me Petr Yan, fourth round TKO over Deiveson Deus de Guerra Figueiredo. All right, that's it for my UFC Fight Night Macau preview, predictions, and breakdown. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and lock up an anaconda choke on the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads from the premier mixed martial arts and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M. Let's make some money this weekend at UFC Macau, and I'm out.